Alrighty, hi, my name is Delia Valdez, and I'm currently here with Michael Arce, aka Professor Arce, a professor that works at MSJC who's going to tell us a little bit more about himself and give us a little insight about sociology. So, hi, Professor. How are you doing today?
Doing all right.
Doing
Thanks
all
for
right.
asking.
Nice. Okay. First and foremost, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself? How does your home life look like? How does it start off?
We don't have enough time. Okay. Your first question is to just tell you a little bit about myself in general, or specific as a
Yeah,
professor.
in general, how does a morning look like for Professor Arce before he comes in and?
It's pretty chill.
Yeah.
First things first, make breakfast for my wife. That's the first thing. Second thing, make breakfast for the baby. It's always about taking care of other people first. I know that's not really what you're asking about.
How many babies? Just one baby you have?
Well, the baby is always with me. When Aaliyah's at home with me, my oldest one, then I'm making breakfast for her too. Actually, I'm trying to get her to make her own breakfast. It's about that time.
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying?
How old is she?
12. It's time. It's time she can start some stuff. You know what I'm saying? I didn't say, she got to be out here making some 5-star Michelin meals. I'm just saying, come on, pour yourself some cereal from time to time. It'll be all right. Yeah, you can do a waffle. I think we get a little sidetracked. But I think because it's tell you about me.
Yeah. So how long have you actually been working at MSJC? Did you start relatively in this year, 2 years ago? Is sociology been your thing?
It's a good question. So I'll take you back to the beginning. Not too far back. So I got my master's degree in sociology in 2018. It's actually technically called the Master's in Sociological Practice. It's the same thing as sociology. We learned sociology, but then there was an emphasis to do something with it. It's more than just studying and conducting research for the sake of research, which was always very dope. But while I was in there, I had no idea what I wanted to do. In terms of a career, I went into grad school knowing that I wanted to get a graduate degree. That was it. So it's an ego thing, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which my students know. There's no surprise there. So when I got my degree, I needed to figure out what the next step was. So while I was doing my master's degree, I completed an internship for teaching at the community college level. It was unfortunate. I don't want to say unfortunately. Part of the reason I did it is because the faculty at Cal State San Marcos in the sociology program, they all have PhDs, which is great. And so a lot of their advice was really about, well, your next step is a PhD.
Yeah, to get you there.
Yeah, there wasn't really a whole lot of emphasis on what could I do if I didn't want to advance to a PhD right now. So started teaching, did that internship, started teaching, got my first class, fall 2018. I still even remember some of those students because it was just an impactful experience, you know. You don't think of yourself moving through these things. I don't know that you think of that space that you want to get to and what it means for you to actually be there. So for me to be relatively young with a master's degree, stand in front of these students who are close in age to me, you know what I'm saying? That was meaningful. That was a meaningful experience. I had a good time. I'm sure they had a good time. I like to believe they did. But I just never left. I've been teaching sociology since fall 2018. I started teaching at MSJC fall 2021.
Oh, okay. So where were you before MSJC?
So I'm originally from Oceanside, not that you asked.
I'm from Oceanside. Could have said that with your family life, but of course. Right?
Originally from Oceanside, and so the community college down there I started teaching at was Maricosta College. I also taught at Palomar College, which is in San Marcos, and I did teach one semester of behavioral statistics at Cal State San Marcos.
At Cal State San Marcos? Oh, fun.
Yeah.
And you didn't want to stay there?
So you can't get a full-time job at a university unless you have a doctorate degree.
A doctorate degree, gotcha.
And you could be a lecturer. You could teach some classes, but you ain't gonna be full time. Now I want to be full time, and I want to work with community college students. They're pretty dope.
I believe we are too. To be honest with you, I'm graduating, but I'll be going somewhere with it. Hopefully.
That's the goal.
You had mentioned that you wanted to be teaching. Was it always sociology? Did you go like a different route? I mean, I'm sure when you're growing up, when you were a kid, you didn't think I'm going to be a sociology professor. So, I mean, what you initially, like when you're maybe like 10, what did you want to be? And then after that, what made you transition into sociology?
That's a good question. As a kid, being influenced by my parents in terms of what I wanted to be. The first thing I remember wanting to be was a judge. I don't know why, but it had to be a judge. And as an adult, I know now, like, you got to go to law school, be an attorney, practice, and then you move into being a judge. It was never about all that other stuff. It was just I wanted to be the judge. I wanted to be the one to decide things. I don't know why. I'm sure there's some ego in that too.
Yeah, I was gonna say like pride.
There's got to be. Okay. And then later that transformed into wanting to be a surgeon, but not just any kind of surgeon. I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. I wanted to work with brains.
I would never want you in my brain. But okay, all right. Glad we didn't go that way.
Fair enough. Because as an adult, like, that's not, when I see things on TV about surgery, that's not for me. I can't imagine myself in that space. When I got to community college, and what you all tend to experience is this sense of, I need to figure out what I want to do, and I need to figure out now. And I've got to decide whatever that lifelong thing is going to be, like, right this moment. And so I experienced that too. I had a little bit more flexibility with the classes I could take and all that stuff, and so I got to explore some. But I bounced around from being like a K through 12 teacher, more specifically high school. I bounced around with the idea of pursuing a degree in some kind of STEM field, math, engineering, some kind of physical science. But it took me a long time to get through community college. I'll say that here. It took me 7 years. And in that time, I got to play around with a bunch of different ideas. I thought about graphic design. Like one semester, I took classes all dedicated to graphic design. I thought about going into IT because stability or what have you.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, when we play with these ideas, right? It's like I'm supposed to figure this thing out. I got to a point after my oldest was born where I realized I needed to just move on to the next step because I was still at community college, and the next step after that for me was transferring. And so I didn't necessarily have great experiences with counselors, and I hear that can be the case, right? Some people have great experiences. I didn't. I did not have great experiences. And so I took the time to look over my transcript, to match it up with whatever plan it is to transfer to a CSU. I matched all my classes, and it came down to I only need 5 classes left to transfer. And that was to transfer with a degree in sociology. I had zero intention of majoring in sociology.
Really?
I just want to transfer. I just said, get me out of here. Let me have a change of scenery. Maybe that'll help me figure out whatever I'm supposed to do.
I'm literally in the same boat.
But I took my 2 sociology classes. It was like an intro class, a 101, and then the other one was behavioral statistics. I took them both with the same professor. He changed my life. He absolutely changed my life. I still keep in touch with him to this day. That's not what you're asking about. The point is,
no, but that's cool.
He was so influential. He was the first professor I ever went to office hours for. Shameless plug for myself. The first professor I felt connected to, and that I wanted to interact with him outside the classroom. You know what I mean? And so once I transferred, I just stayed with sociology. I couldn't leave it. I couldn't break away from it.
That's actually really inspirational, especially because everything that you're saying, like the wanting to be a judge, was me. I wanted to I think it has a lot to do with my sign, I guess, because I like to like balance and stuff. But yeah, same thing too. Counselors kind of led me astray. I've been here 6 years. I have a lot of the similarity with you. You are the first office hours that I've ever gone to.
You're welcome.
But for me, I didn't know a lot about sociology, and I'm sure a lot of other people don't know. So, like, can you define it? What exactly is sociology?
I just want you to know first, before I answer that, that was a really impressive transition into your next question. That was super smooth. Super smooth.
Thank you.
Damn, you caught me off guard with that. What is sociology? So sociology is the study of human social behavior. That's like its broad definition. And the reason that I identify as a broad definition is because as a sociologist, you don't necessarily need to study inequalities that happen in society. You don't need to focus on that particular aspect. And I call attention to that specifically because my program in my master's degree was super heavy on talking about social inequalities, not just talking about that social problems exist, but like really getting into what those problems are, what are some contributing factors to them, larger social structures that we would talk about. And again, because my program was focused on practice and not just sociology, it's you've done this research, what do you do with it now? How do you take this to the next step? And so there was excitement for me in that particular program because I wanted to do something with it. I knew it was powerful. I knew it was important research. I knew that you can study these things that for many sociologists, the things that we study are very personal to us, right? So for example, when I initially transferred to Cal State San Marcos, my bachelor's degree is sociology with an emphasis in children, youth, and families. Because I want to know, like, what does sociology say about my parents got divorced, I'm divorced, like, what does divorce mean for kids, and like all these different experiences that have been studied from a sociological perspective, right? So first it was family, and then it transformed into something else. I think you got a question about that, so I'll hold off.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm just so excited. But as a field of study, we are concerned with human social behavior. So it's not only looking at individuals. I want to make sure that whoever watches this understands we do look at interpersonal interaction, like one-on-one interaction, but we're also looking at the interactions among groups and within society. So we also have a bigger perspective too.
Okay, so you feel like sociology, we can use it to our day-to-day lives. We use it even now. We're doing it now, right? And even in this interview. So I'm sure that you use sociological perspectives throughout your course of learning there. So it directed you from family and children and life and development into what? What is your niche? What is your what is it? Bread and butter, if you will.
What a great question. So it transformed in a very organic way. I'll say it transformed because it had always been something of interest to me, but not in the way that I was ultimately taught how to think about it. Race and ethnicity that is my jam, like 1000%. And as let me speak personally to my experience. As a kid, growing up in my house, I saw my mom as she was white. Like my mom is white. She's just a very light-skinned woman. And my dad is a dark-skinned dude. And so I always thought, if you ask me, I would say like my mom is white and my dad is black. And that's it, right? But I knew, as you know, if you spend time around people, both of them spoke Spanish fluently. And so what really kind of set me off on a sociological analysis as a kid was that looking at my parents, I knew they could speak Spanish, but they didn't necessarily speak the Spanish that was spoken in my wider community, because my parents are Puerto Rican. So hearing them speak Spanish is very different from hearing Spanish from other spaces, right? Growing up at Oceanside, one of the largest Spanish-speaking populations is people of Mexican descent.
Yeah.
And so the Spanish I heard at home was not what I heard
completely different.
Right outside.
Spaniards, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a very different way of interacting, and so that always struck me as odd, right? Because I know it's Spanish, but it's just so different for me, right? And then, you know, with both my parents looking, you know, having their particular phenotypes and physical characteristics, and then my brother and I coming out like somewhere in between, right? It's like, oh shit, well, how does that happen, right? It used to kind of come from a biological question, I guess. Like as a kid, it's like, how does that even happen? I look exactly like my mom in terms of my facial features. My brother looks like my dad, but as far as like skin tone, hair texture, we don't carry a lot of those like Afro features you find in Black communities.
Yeah.
That I associate with my dad, right? So race and ethnicity just became like I just fell in love with it. I absolutely fell in love with it, which has also helped because when I got into my graduate program, one of my professors who became like the person overseeing my whole master's thesis. She's actually from an island called St. Vincent, which is in the Caribbean. It's a Caribbean island, and she has done a lot of research on St. Vincent, but also on Puerto Rico. And so
that's cool.
I was like, I kind of want to work with you. Like I love what you're doing over there. I like what you're doing. Let me in.
Let me do what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully the people that see this or hear you talk about it, especially in your classrooms, feel the same way. Like, I want to do what you do, but how? Like, what career path could I possibly have under sociology that would benefit me? Like, do you have some things that you want to put out there? Give me some careers.
Again, super dope transition. That was amazing.
Thank you.
That was crazy.
I'm actually really good at this.
No kidding. That's great. That's funny. All right. So you asked about like careers in sociology.
Yeah, like
right?
If I want to do it, let's say I change my major right now. What is it going to get me?
I'll give you two pieces of information.
Okay.
The first is that I can share with you the data around that. There is data that's collected about people who graduate with particular degrees and where they end up in terms of larger industry, maybe not always necessarily specific jobs, but oftentimes you'll find people with sociology backgrounds in like human resource roles. You will find them in spaces like research and policy analysis, market research. You'll find them engaged in like community organizations that are based around outreach programs. You'll find people with that kind of background. So the data side of things has titles that you can do research on, right? And that's cool. I think that can be helpful in terms of giving students an idea of what can be possible. I mean, you can also, oftentimes you'll find sociology majors who are interested in pursuing sociology specifically as a field. You'll typically have to get a graduate degree. Right, so whether a master's degree or a doctorate degree, in order to continue working, like if you wanted to be a sociologist, it's typically having that kind of graduate level education, right? Okay. On the other hand, this was something that I shared with your class, and hopefully they took it to heart, but we'll see, is whatever you decide to do, right? Your degree needs to be supplemented by you doing more. Unfortunately, right? It sucks. But think about it this way. You're a comm major right now, right? By the time you graduate, you're going to be graduating alongside hundreds of other comm majors. So if you're out there in the workforce competing against all these other comm majors, what can you do to set yourself apart from them? Right? That's how I want you to think about it. So, as you're pursuing your bachelor's degree, look for, if internships are an option for you, work experience, if that's an option for you, finding opportunities like being a tutor, right? To be in a space where
that's a great one right there.
That's a good idea, right?
Good one.
Ultimately, the like the heart of this second piece of advice is be intentional, right? When I transferred to Cal State San Marcos, I was working in web development, and honestly, I just wanted a full-time job. I didn't really care what it was going to be, and I thought maybe I could do web development, but my boss pulled me aside. He said, you know, I can't give you a full-time job here, but what do you want to do? Is this really even it? And it wasn't what I want to do. But, you know, if you come from like a lower socioeconomic background, if you come from a background and you don't really have a lot of exposure and experiences, you kind of start just like grabbing at these opportunities like, oh shit, like that could be the thing I do, or that could be the thing I do. What is going to get me that stability, right? To support myself, to support my family, to build the life that I like to build. And I say that because I ultimately left that job for a lower paying job, working with outreach, the outreach program at Cal State San Marcos, because that was more aligned with what I wanted to do. So I was in a position to be able to take that, you know, it wasn't even a significant pay cut, but I was in a position to sacrifice that in order to pursue this thing. And not everybody's always in that. And, you know, I understand, I respect that there's a real struggle and a hustle that students face. So how do you make do with what you have and still be intentional?
And be set for success in some aspect, because I really felt that the grasping for straws or grasping for anything, I feel like I, along with other people as well, we go through that. And that's a great piece of advice, honestly, just to be intentional and eventually find something that you're actually into. Because the monetization of life sometimes it takes over. That was a great last piece of advice. Would you like to add anything else for any of those students who might see this at MSJC?
Make use of this sounds shitty to frame it this way. Make use of the people around you, right? If you have professors who are telling you come to my office hours, we actually, it doesn't seem that way. I understand, but and y'all will get a sense for like who's a professor that really means it when they say it, right? But go to those office hours, send us emails. You have questions that extend beyond the classroom, and that's fine. We had to navigate those things too, and I'll speak to myself. It doesn't even matter who's watching this. If I'm not your professor, it doesn't matter. Come see me. I will give you everything that I got. Because my goal is to just see you all succeed. Whatever that next step is, it honestly doesn't even matter. You want to pursue a certificate and you want some help navigating that? Cool, I got you. I'll help you. You want just an associate so you can get out into the field, start getting some of that experience? I got you. You want to transfer, get that bachelor's, go on for master's, doctorate degrees? Cool, I'm right there with you, right? My job is to see you get the thing that you want. Like that's how I see myself. Sociologically, right? Because I'm a sociologist. But reality is you don't have to be a sociologist to come see me. You know what I'm saying? I wish I had a better track record of converting students over to sociology, but I don't. I really don't. It has been. It's not working. I don't think I'm very good at that. But I am. Yeah. But I am good at making sure I get students the what it is that they're asking for. That's what I try to do.
You are actually really good at that. But thank you so much for that last piece of advice to use people, but not use people, but use people right. to help you assist your journey. That was good, heartwarming advice, and very appreciated. Well, thank you. That's going to be concluding our little interview. Thank you so much for your time.
Of course, I'm pretty done.
And yeah, I'll let you know when this, if it gets posted.
Okay.
Thank
Tell
you.
your friends.
Tell my friends.